All right, so I'll tell you some kind of like supernatural type stuff that I found out. Y'all probably gonna think I'm crazy after this, but it's okay.
I'm excited. This is dope.
So when I was about 2 years old, and the reason why I know I was 2 years old because after I was like 3 or 4, I wasn't sleeping in the same bed with my father anymore. I was laying in the bed with my father, and the TV was on in the living room, and I was looking out into the hallway. Okay, the only way that I could describe what I saw was if you remember what an Ewok looked like from Star Wars. And not the Ewok, but them little things that fix on the cars and stuff they had on the hood and all you could see was their eyes. You know what I'm talking about? Okay.
So it's like, I got you, like a hooded thing with eyes.
Yeah, but this one didn't have eyes. So anyway, so this thing, I seen it like scoot like this up to the doorway. And he just like stood at me for a minute, and then he like came at me, and I was like, ah! And mind you, I'm like 2 years old. So my dad would go like, what's wrong? And I'm like 2, so I'm like speaking gibberish trying to tell him what I saw, but I don't have command of the English language back then because I'm only 2 years old. So I'm like, daddy, trying to tell him what's going on. Okay, so after that experience, I think that was like an entry point or whatever. It was kind of like the beginning. After that, I developed an imaginary friend. Now, you know that when children develop imaginary friends, they are usually a fracture of other traumatic things that happen to children to kind of protect them mentally from what's going on so they don't break. So it, like, your mind kind of like, y'all think I'm crazy. So your mind just fractures and stuff like, alternate personalities and stuff like that. Well, why do you think in church when they do the altar call, they call it the altar call? It's not the altar, it's not just a podium. It's altar because you're bringing the other parts of yourself that are kind of like out there. You're bringing those under submission, so you bring them to the altar so you can keep whatever they got going on up under your feet. Okay, so you bring those entities that you have working in you, because the biggest misnomer to me about human nature is you could be the nicest person, sweetest person 80% of the time. Then if you have that 20% of you that's not so pleasant, they always want to say that's the real you. That is not the real you. That's just some shit that you got going on that you just couldn't contain it at that point.
So your imaginary friend was mean?
My imaginary friend was not mean. No. My imaginary friend was a grown man. He had yellow eyes and pale green skin, and he wore a big hat like like Curious George's daddy, like the man with the
hell no.
And guess what his name was?
What was his name?
Mr. Welcome.
Mr. what?
Mr. Welcome.
Mr. Welcome.
Yes. So, all right, I'm going somewhere with this.
That's she crazy. She crazy. Let's go. Something latched onto her ass. Is that nigga here?
No. So by the time I was 12, he was gone. And that's because I had a problem with church. And I couldn't understand why people would talk this talk in church, but none of it would line up with what they would do. So I had took a whole summer and I locked myself in a car and I read the Bible for a whole summer because I needed to understand why everybody was so contradictory towards what they would say and what they would do. And I got a real good understanding of kind of like biblical principalities. And I just realized that people are just fucking liars and hypocrites. It's no other. And then like some of the things that are taught or whatever just are not right. Like it's just not right. So anyway, so I say all that to say that was my most traumatic childhood experience, but I think it stemmed from some other things that I don't want to talk about, but that's kind of where all that came into play because it was like a protection. But again, that Mr. Welcome left at about 12 years old when I kind of was like, I don't want to entertain that anymore. I'm trying to go a different route with my life, and so I made that conscious decision at the age of 12.
So you sent the spirit away.
Kind of like with my actions, I didn't like tell him like I don't want to talk to you no more. It's just like what I did because I took command over what was going on with me psychologically. There was no need for him to protect me anymore. So I, normalized myself by trying to understand human nature, and by understanding human nature as far as when it comes to religiosity or religion, it helped me get that under control.
Did he talk?
He didn't really talk per se, but like the things that he would have me do, he wasn't mean or nasty, but he would have me do shit like set booby traps for people, and it wasn't nothing that would ever really work. It was just like make a pillow or something fall on somebody's head. Now, mind you, I'm still a child when all this is happening, so I'm not like fucking Chucky or no shit like that. I'm not trying to kill nobody, but it was just like little mischievous.
Chuckiana.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
I had a cousin, right? And I remember he had one, my older cousin. And now that you said people have one, because I never had one to protect themselves. I remember it was a faggot that used to be around in our family. So that made me think that's probably what this shit was.
Yep. Well, he was being molested or something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking so.
Yeah. My story is very relatable to that, which is why I developed mine. Yeah. But that's why I said I kind of don't want to go into that part, but that's where that came from. Absolutely. Yep.
And I remember, I brought this up before, but yeah, the nigga was coming around. He still coming around the last time. And I remember he came over my auntie house and he had brought a dog. Like, this nigga like damn near 60. He was like, look what I had bought or whatever. And I looked at him. I was like, I should beat the shit out of this nigga. But I'm lucky he never did nothing to me, though.
Right.
And then I asked my mom, because we actually, we went to the zoo with him one time. And then I asked my mom, I said, why the hell did y'all let us even go around this nigga? And y'all they knew about the shit.
Swear to God.
And they was like, well, did he do something to you? But I'm like, I wouldn't.
I mean, by this time it would have been too fucking late now, though, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, that's that bullshit right there.
And if I say yeah, what's gonna happen?
Exactly.
No, I would have got that nigga if he would have did.
No, I'm saying them. Like,
they probably wouldn't have did shit.
Right. Exactly. My point exactly. Yep.